how's it going? For today's video, I bring you one rather cool and definitely a special treat. An in-depth look and test drive of the 2002 Dodge Viper RT10. And this is going to be a detailed, in-depth review of the Viper. We'll start it up so the engine, get an exhaust clipping over the performance data, take it on a detailed test drive, and show you a bunch of the unique aspects of the interior as well as exterior. And before we begin, I'd like to extend a big thanks and special shout out to All City Auto Sales located in Indian Trail, North Carolina, for providing the Viper featured in today's in-depth review and road test. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and start her up, let her run. The exterior color is known as Viper Race Yellow, complemented by an all-black perforated leather interior. Beautiful sound from that 8-liter V10. The second-generation Viper featured power-assisted rack and pinion steering fed through a revised 3-spoke leather-wrapped steering wheel, a much more refined, soft, and comfortable wheel compared to the crude metal-spoke design of the first-gen. It also featured mandated dual airbags for both driver and passenger, which also explains why the second-gen Vipers don't have a glove box and first-gens did. The steering feels pretty on-center, it does exactly what you tell it, and emits a great road feel without excess shuddering from rough pavement. While it's on the stiffer side, it is relatively easy to turn in low-speed maneuvering. As far as the gearbox, its only choice was a Borg Warner T56 6-speed manual paired with a hydraulically actuated 12-inch clutch, and fed through an aluminum drive shaft to a limited-slip 3.07-to-1 Dana 44 differential. And it's just wickedly cool to see the vibrations from that massive V10 transfer right through the shifter. The tall shifter position and offset pedals take some getting used to, but it does feel solid and precise overall. Gear changes are quick, while the simple leather ball shifter and aluminum shaft evoke a cool classic feeling. So let's go ahead and flip on the headlamps, fog lamps, and the hazards. So let's go ahead and get started and check out the exterior. Chrysler Corporation turned the automotive world upside down with the release of the Viper concept in 1989. The all-new sports car was designed to replicate what it would mean to have a modern-day 65 Shelby Cobra. What they ended up creating, though, was a sports car legend. A car that would show the public that Dodge wasn't just a mass producer of K-cars and caravans, but a brand that still retained a wild side, revitalizing that passion of building dedicated performance machines that made history in the 1960s. When the concept was unveiled, it took everyone by surprise. The fact that this exotic supercar came from the same company who built the Dodge Omni and Plymouth Reliant. After receiving the green light for production, a group of 85 engineers, known as Team Viper, had a running prototype within a year. Within 3 years, the Viper was ready to deliver to consumers. With collaboration from Lamborghini, a subsidiary of Chrysler Corporation at the time, The Viper's all-aluminum V10 was one of a kind, based on Chrysler's LA engine design commonly used in trucks. This custom-designed engine would also be cast entirely out of aluminum by Lamborghini. At 488 cubic inches, it was the largest engine the company had produced to date. Aluminum ended up saving around 150 pounds over the cast iron truck block, for an original weight of 711 pounds in Phase 1 cars. A 2-valve pushrod design was maintained for cost, and it featured dual throttle bodies with a low-profile cross-ram intake up front. It has a higher compression ratio, strength in connecting rods and crankshaft, and large valves, lighter pistons, and higher max revolutions per minute. Not to mention, the manifolds, oil pan, heads, and accessory drive were also unique to the Viper. To help in cooling, Lamborghini also adapted an F1-inspired external cooling manifold that runs alongside the block, resulting in the lowest temperature rise of any Chrysler engine produced at the time. The valve covers are magnesium with cast steel tuned exhaust headers. In 1996, Dodge introduced the second-generation Viper. It featured numerous upgrades that would really take the mark up a notch in refinement. With remote locking, exterior door handles, available hardtop, power windows, standard air conditioning, and even a security system, it was the first Viper you could actually daily drive and be comfortable. The biggest news though for 96 was an all-new coupe model that would be known as the GTS. With its signature double bubble roof to incorporate larger racing helmets, hinting back at the car's original purpose, it debuted a refreshed exterior with a vastly improved and modern interior. Initially, only GTS coupes were built, but shortly after, these quality improvements would be adapted to an all-new RT10 Roadster in 1997. The styling is familiar overall with revised fascias and aerodynamics. For starters, the 8-liter V10 was lighter by about 80 pounds, bringing the total to around 650. With revised internals such as a higher compression ratio and revised crankshaft, it brought about 50 more horsepower and 40 pound-feet more of torque, not to mention 11 miles per hour higher top speed than before. The chassis was redesigned using computer analysis to not only make it 25% stiffer, but also lessen weight to over 100 pounds. 60 pounds alone were thanks to more aluminum components. Thanks to the refreshed suspension geometry, the new Viper also had improved roll control, response, and road holding ability. Contrary to Phase 1, Phase 2 features rear exit dual exhaust pipes rather than the brutal side pipes. While reappearing for 2003 in the RT10, this made not only performance enhancements of Phase 2, but also gave it a meaner sound without being quite as restricted. But let's not kid ourselves, those door sills still get hot. Even without an exposed pipe to get unsuspecting legs, the sills still get very warm, speaking from experience. Which is why there continues to be a warning decal to watch yourself when climbing in and out. The optional hardtop provides all-weather comfort, but by removing the roof, lowering the windows, and removing the clip-in rear glass window, it instantly brings back the original open Roadster design. Airbags were introduced for the first time in 1996 on the GTS, and then to the redesigned RT10 Roadster in 97. Even though the Viper didn't feature any electronic stability or traction control systems, ABS was finally introduced for 2001 to help improve braking performance, one of the biggest faults of the first gen. At a base price of around $66,000, the Viper was a bargain for the level of exotic it brought to the domestic market. The chassis is composed of tubular sections both in the front and rear, attached to a central tubular backbone. The rear chassis provides the suspension mounting points as well as the cradle for the fuel tank, battery, and spare tire, positioned as such to help add extra weight to the rear wheels for better traction and give the car a perfect weight distribution. We'll talk more about the suspension in a bit, but it's largely made from tubular steel and aluminum components. The body consists of resin transfer molding and sheet-molded composite lower panels, whereas functional hood and side fender heat extractors help remove heat quickly. The Viper had a few different wheel styles available over the years, but these later models featured staggered 17-inch polished forged aluminum alloys, 17 by 10 inches in front and 17 by 13 inches in the rear, wrapped in high-performance Michelin Pilot Sport tires, 275/40s in front and 355/35s in the rear, engineered to pull an impressive 1G in lateral cornering grip. As far as the brakes, the standard ventilated discs didn't change much over the years, but did perform better over time. Up front, you do have 13 by 1.26-inch discs with 4-piston fixed calipers, while the rear also has 13-inch discs, but they're thinner at 0.87 inches wide. They also have single-piston sliding calipers. While the brakes are powered, they didn't come with any anti-lock braking systems till 2001. They still didn't have any sort of stability or traction control. It's truly a raw vehicle, letting the driver be fully in control. With this setup, before ABS was introduced, the Viper could stop for 60 miles an hour and a decent 133 feet. The suspension features double wishbones at all four corners with unequal length upper and lower A-arms, coil springs, and gas-filled shock absorbers. Overall length is 175.1 inches and rides on a 96.2 inch wheelbase. Width is 75.7 inches and height is 44 inches. Total curb weight, depending on how equipped, is around 3,020 pounds. So let's talk a little bit more about performance. First, opening the hood is a 3-step process. You need to begin by pulling the lever behind the bumper cover and the upper driver's side corner opening. Then, once the hood is popped loose, there's another lever on the driver's side to release it like a regular car. Finally, grab the hood by the cowl and bring it forward like a C4 generation Corvette. The Viper sports an all-aluminum overhead valve 8-liter V10 with sequential multi-port fuel injection. It displaces 488 cubic inches, has 2 valves per cylinder, a compression ratio of 9.6 to 1, and a red line of 6,000 RPM. With less weight and beefier internals, total horsepower output is 450 at 5,200 RPM, with an impressive 490 pound-feet of torque at 3,700 RPM. Even more impressive was a wide power band, with enough power to light the rear tires up as low as 2,000 RPM. This translates to 0 to 60 times as low as 4 seconds, with quarter-mile times of 12.3 seconds at 118 miles an hour. Top speed is approximately 175. As far as fuel economy, with a 19-gallon tank on required premium unleaded, the EPA rated the Viper between 13 city and 24 miles to a gallon on the highway, significantly better than the first gen. Like you probably have seen in my previous review of the 1993 Viper, the Phase 1 cars were very Spartan inside. The build quality was purposeful if not crude, with a fabric roof, plastic windows, and did not initially come with creature comforts like padded surfaces, AC, and more. With the second generation, Viper was launched into the modern era. While familiar, the interior might as well be from another world compared with its predecessor. Throughout, you'll find many of the touch points are covered in soft touch material now, and feel better put together overall. The styling has been softened while passenger comfort has improved. The seating is surprisingly comfortable, with deep bolsters and reasonable padding all where it counts. The leather is softer than before and is now perforated in the middle. While it doesn't adjust for height, it does manually adjust fore and aft in addition to recline. There's even an inflatable lumbar for both seats with a pump in front of the seat that looks like it was taken from a blood pressure cuff. Climbing in doesn't take as much effort as you would think, but you might want to still watch out for the hot rocker panels. The pedals are offset to the left with no room for a dead pedal. This is actually due to packaging of the front midship engine layout and headers. The dash features the same swooping pattern with just some reconfiguration of gauges. There's also a standard tilting steering wheel.
So let's go ahead and see how she sounds.
good job, at least with these North Carolina back roads. There's a few potholes every now and then, but I haven't hit anything that made me say ow or anything like that, so I guess that's definitely a good thing. I mean, the Viper isn't a small car at all, but the interior makes it feel like it's smaller than a Mini. Love it. And boy, does she handle good. Nice and tight. Fifth and sixth gears, I know are typically known as overdrive gears, but it's especially true in the Viper. There's pretty much no power while it's in sixth gear. You're going to at least want to drop down to fourth or something if you got to make a maneuver. So let's go ahead and shut her up. Now the Viper's interior is pretty simple overall. Pretty much all of your necessary essentials this day and age, including your air conditioning, a basic radio, as well as a vast array of vehicle status gauges. Going from left to right, you have your vehicle temperature, oil pressure, fuel, and voltometer. 3 center-mounted air vents. This particular one's actually had an audio system upgrade. Your power mirrors are located here, your interior lighting dimmers there, your power windows like you saw earlier, lighter, indoor power outlet, and a little ashtray. The climate control is pretty much standard parts bin Dodge or Chrysler units, so you have all of your different zones over here, including front defrost, temperature, and fan speed. There is a soft vinyl application to the center console, and really the only bit of storage is this lockable storage cabinet back here, also lined in felt, and your rear speaker for the audio system. Like I said, the rear glass is also removable, and definitely one of my favorite interior styling cues of the Viper is how the dash curves away and blends seamlessly into the door panels. Definitely signature to Viper. Up top, you do have padded visors, as well as a manually dimming rearview mirror with reading lamps down below. Simple gauges up front, tachometer to the left, and speedometer, odometer, and trip computer to the right. All of your warning lights will show up in that right-hand side portion. All in all, that's really pretty much it. You do have your intermittent wiper stalk off to the left-hand side with the turn signals, not to mention the tilt steering wheel and your lighting controls like I mentioned earlier. Now we're going to shut her down and check out the rest of the vehicle. Opening up the trunk is also a 2-step process. It can only be unlocked using the key. Once open, you lift it up and notice there are no gas-charged struts to help hold it up. Instead, there's a metal prop similar to what you would see holding up a car hood. Once in place, you're free to load up around 6.8 cubic feet worth of cargo. Plenty for storing a few bags on a weekend trip. Like I said, the Viper also doesn't feature a glove box, being a more race-inspired vehicle built for performance versus practicality. The Viper is a pure expression of emotion. You either love it or hate it. While the second generation is significantly more modern than its predecessor, it's still a brutal, purist driving machine. With a massive V10, rear-wheel drive, and a manual transmission, it's without a doubt one of a kind. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed the in-depth look at the 2002 Dodge Viper RT10. Be sure to stay tuned next time. There's a lot more where that came from. Take care everybody.